Hey, Tim Alden here. Today we're going to stitch some HeyDude shoes on our Cobra Class 2918 patch machine. So this is a patch that my wife Michelle carved up for these shoes, and what we did was just do all the finish work, everything, get it ready to stick on. We coated the whole thing in 1/2-inch double-sided tape. You want to make sure and pull it back from the edges. If it's sticking out a little bit, you don't want it to catch dirt. So this is a size 8 pattern for a size 8 shoes, and I like to place it right up next to those stitches. I'll kind of work along one side until you get to here, and this is where we want a gap in the pattern. That way this can fold over. Just make sure and get this centered here. Way when they're stuck down real good. Get the laces back on. It'll look sharp. And so, like in the setup video, I feel like it stitches better when it's rolling around to the left than if it's going to the right. So we're going to stitch as much as we can going to the left. Okay, so this is going to be your stitch length here. I'm not positive that they're stitches per inch. I would say just use it as a guide for numbers and what works. And so you're just going to unloosen that slide and move it down, and looks like we have 5, 6 and a half hash mark, and then it jumps to 8. And so just below that hash mark that is below 8 is right where I like it to be when I'm stitching HeyDudes. I used to start at this corner here and just stitch around, but then I had to stitch away from myself to come across here, and I just couldn't see very well where I was going. And now I found you can stitch that way, but then you kind of got to look around here and it just gets complicated. I found that if you just open this up, you're able to stitch this right along here. We're going to place our needle right in this corner. This rotates to the right. We're going to get this in position. Drop our foot. Make sure we're at a low speed. We had it winding and bobbing at 24. And I stitch them at 2. I'm not in a hurry. Your stitching is the most, well, it's not the most important thing, but it's something that anybody should be able to do well. And so I like to get it really neat and tidy. And so I'm going to hold my threads just like a traditional machine. One thing that I do on this, I find that I'm not very comfortable with my foot on the pedal like this when I'm sitting in a position up over it because I'm long-legged. And so I actually turn my foot rather than be like this. It's just puts stress on my ankle and my knees being all cramped up. Actually, it will pull my chair just a little bit to the side here. I actually turn my foot to the side to where it's on this bar, and I have way more control. I just rest my heel on the traditional pedal. So we're just going to hold our threads here, just like on a regular sewing machine, and I'm just going to go slow and make sure that my needle is dropping right in that groove. Once you get a couple of stitches, you can let go of that thread. Focus on where you're going. gonna sink our needle. Needle's gonna start coming up. And then all we gotta do is just pivot that around. I'm gonna snip these threads off close. Drop this down, and we'll take off again. Just want to keep this as flat as possible, just where it's not going to bind up or hang up. And if you can push to where this shoe isn't running up against that arm of the machine just ever so slightly, just reduces the friction and helps things along. Now when you get up to this corner, it's going to get tight up against the wall of that shoe, and it can kind of try to short stitch you, and so you got to make sure that it's pulling that shoe in how you want it to. Otherwise you're going to have to lengthen the stitch manually just by helping it kind of pull that material in. And I don't ever turn this machine while the foot's down, because that's a really good opportunity to just scratch your tool in. And so when it's up, that's when I'm going to make a little adjustment. We're good probably there for another stitch. Get that needle on the upstroke. Spin that around. And we're just going to take off. I'm just going to stitch over about 4 stitches. Get the needle out, back it up just a little bit. Flip our foot up and snip these along. And I just make sure and pull that thread to where that stitch is in the middle, snip it off at about 1/8 of an inch on both sides. And so you can see that the machine still left a couple of little tracks, especially around the corner here. I don't get too worried about that. So we're going to show you how to clean that up real quick. I'd rather it had just a little bit of those teeth left. Can burn the inside, just be real careful. And make sure you push that down nice and tight. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put a little bit of water just real lightly around the edge, rub it with a rubbing stick, and then I use acrylic Resolene as my resist and top coat on these, just because they are going to be on the ground and they'll probably have more chance of getting water on them than most projects will. And so I want them to be a little more water resistant or spill resistant. And anyway, so what I'll do is I'll just put a little water on here, rub it with a stick, push that down, and then just roll around with a little dauber and just a light little bit of acrylic Resolene, and we'll show you how that looks when they're all done. Well, thanks for stopping by. Hope this helps you. There's a lot of cheap knockoff Chinese machines out there. Not that this one wasn't made in China, but they're not made in the same factory. I've talked to a lot of people that have really struggled and asked me questions about their patch machines. And for those machines I can't really answer questions. I just know that a lot of the old Singers, they're pretty worn out that people are using these days. I've had one and I had to put, 2 pieces of cardstock under this little gizmo to keep it pushed down, and then make sure and turn my needle because it would want to shift my needle because the set screw wouldn't hold it. And there was just all sorts of little quirks that really were frustrating, and even when it was running mediocre, it didn't do anywhere close to the job that this machine does. And so if you are going to do a lot of these HeyDudes, really it's not that big of an investment if you're pumping these out. If you're doing 1 or 2, that's understandable. There's, you can go through a lot of stress with sewing machine to stitch 1 or 2 pair of shoes. But if you're going to be doing this, stitching 10, 15, 20, 30 pair, on a regular basis, you might as well have a machine that's going to work good for you. So thanks for stopping by. Hope you like this video. Be sure to like and subscribe our page, and we'll see you next time.